really this state of our country. That is what reflected in the December 7 election results, a gap of more than 1.6 million for the presidential, a total massacre in Parliament, about 2/3 of the votes going to the NDC side of the aisle, something that has never happened in the Fourth Republic. That itself should tell you, this was a round rejection, a repudiation of the total mismanagement of every sector of our country. And here we are, now we are beginning to see the full length of the frog. If you look at the CHAS statement, for example, so you have to put the 118 million WAEC debt aside. Then you come to the CHAS statement. CHAS is saying that all recurrent monies owed to schools remain unpaid. CHAS is also saying that arrears for perishable items are yet to be settled. CHAS is also saying that the recent disbursement of funds appears to have excluded single track and day schools, leaving them facing significant financial constraints. CHAS again adds that funds for transporting food items from distribution centers to schools have not been released, creating logistical and financial burdens for school heads. Then CHAS adds to the tall list that some schools have not yet received funds to cover essential utility bills, posing a serious threat to the smooth operation of schools. So it's such a tall list. And then you add CTAC. I mean, the CTAC strike has become the longest strike in the colleges of education history of our country. If you look at the entire period, since we've had the teacher training institutions when they were upgraded to become colleges of education in 2012, you look at that entire history of teacher training, we've never had such a protracted period of strike. Ahead of the elections, they were offered all kinds of promises. And as CTAC is pointing out, those promises have not been kept. And so it's just a hot mess. And there's really no sector that you don't see mounting arrears. The last time the president-elect assessed the energy sector, it emerged that the energy sector has a debt of $2.5 billion. That's the energy sector alone, you know. So there's really no sector from where we sit in Parliament which has not been crippled by the gross mismanagement and the lack of priorities. And you see, what troubles me in this whole discussion is the fact that, Doc, as we speak, massive payments are going on. They are paying contractors of their choice, crony contractors. The Mahama side of the transition team has issued a statement condemning what is going on and urging the government to stop it. The awards of last-minute contracts, the payment of same, even mobilization and all of that. Contracts, some of which are not going through due process. The mass recruitments, the promotions, and all of that. So if you have funds to pay contractors that are clearly falling within a certain favorable bracket, because there is no, if you listen to even the road contractors who have petitioned, they talk about how the payments they hear about are not being spread. It's not on a pro rata basis. You know, favorites have been selected and they are getting all the monies. You know, so this government must prioritize. And you see, in the face of all of these arrears, Doc, isn't it shocking that their preoccupation in Parliament when we returned after the election, the only thing they are championing, for which they are even using Ghanaian workers as human shield, blackmailing Ghanaian workers, that they will not comply with Article 180 of the Constitution and allow Parliament to approve the appropriation in advance, expenditure in advance of appropriation, which must be for the next 3 months of 2025, January to March. We have a situation where we could really have a shutdown of government, where between January and March, salaries will not be paid until such a time that a finance minister is nominated, is vetted by the House and approved. We are now trying to, discuss within our caucus some clever mechanism of probably right after January 7, once the vice president has been sworn in, and God bless her, she's going to become the first female vice president, and we have to celebrate President Mahama for the confidence reposed in women. The discussion now is that we could then get her to deliver what many are calling the mini budget immediately in the 9th Parliament to avert this shutdown. But you see, what people are not even averting their minds to is that it's not only salaries. In January, from 1st January, because the 2024 budget, all public expenditure, the approval given by Parliament ends on the 31st of December 2024. So from 1st January, all public expenditure, our meeting to elect a new speaker, on what basis are we going to be spending for that activity? The inauguration of the new government, the swearing in of the new president and vice president, and that whole ceremony, inviting dignitaries from across the world. You have to transport them. You have to refresh them. All of that expenditure, you require parliamentary approval. That has not been done. When we return from the elections, our colleagues' focus, their preoccupation, was tax waivers. They have selected 46 crony companies as usual, and they say we should give them tax waivers in excess of $350 million. I mean, how does that make sense? You have this fiscal gap. Look at the crisis across all sectors. You can't pay debts in the energy sector, $2.5 billion. Education is in crisis, WAEC, 118 million. CHAS, TOR list, CTAC. There's UTA, conditions of service, and others. There are many suppliers who have written in the education space that they have not been paid. Those who have supplied textbooks, those who have supplied uniforms, those who have supplied vehicles, contractors in the space, those who are building schools, are all saying they are owed. And then you want to create more fiscal gap, a bigger fiscal deficit than you have already created. What is the basis for us approving tax waivers in excess of $350 million? And we have been resisting and will continue to resist. Because you see, this $350 million can help us to resolve these crises. Why do you want to shield these your crony companies and deny the Ghanaian people the opportunity of having revenue from these companies? They should pay their fair share. In any case, Doc, in this campaign, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama was the first to list nuisance taxes, obnoxious taxes, that must go. He said e-levy must go. He said the betting tax must go. The COVID levy must go. The emissions tax must go. Later on, his counterpart, Vice President Bawumia, came along and also said that e-levy in particular must go. Even though, they fought us in Parliament, to the hilt, ignored public sentiments, and eventually even mocked the Ghanaian people by organizing an e-levy party, baked an e-levy cake, and threw it in our faces, that we can go to hell. Eventually, when they saw the backlash, if you read the Afrobarometer, more than 79% of Ghanaians say that is the thing they hate the most, the e-levy. Because it's a tax for, that attacks the vulnerable. Momo. Everybody is using Momo. And, little transactions. And you go after the vulnerable. It's so regressive. It's so obnoxious. It's so inhumane. And all the projections they made, they didn't even meet them. They were not scientific. And then the false promises that if we allowed them to have e-levy, we won't go to the IMF. That didn't happen. So if there is any group...
E-levy was supposed to create how many jobs?
Yes. Millions of jobs. They kept throwing all kinds of figures.
We were hopeful.
E-levy was the panacea for everything. Yeah. It will have solved our unemployment crisis.
It's a herbal medicine.
Yeah. Herbal medicine cures all. Yeah. And after all of those promises, nothing happened. They still kept piling taxes. So, if any category...
Well, that's the e-levy party.
Yeah, that's the e-levy party. Flaunted it in our faces. Impunity. No respect for the people. No respect. I'm not done.
Okay.
So, if any intervention ought to have been carried out after this election on taxes, it should be e-levy going. We should be abolishing e-levy, abolishing COVID levy. We are the only country in the world, as we speak, still collecting an e-levy tax. Sorry, a COVID tax, pardon me, a COVID tax. Long after WHO has announced that this is no longer a pandemic. So, why is it that the masses, the rest of us, fortunately, President Mahama said e-levy should go. Bawumia says it should also go. If we have an opportunity as a parliament in this midnight period, these dying embers of the 8th parliament, to do anything on taxes, shouldn't it be abolishing e-levy, COVID levy, the emissions tax, and all of that, those nuisance taxes that we all agreed in the campaign?
The government doesn't agree.
Bawumia said that he now is converted and e-levy should go. So why is it that what will benefit all of us, that's why you are not interested? It is only a few, 46 companies. They shouldn't pay their fair share. In any case, you remember President Akufo-Addo's first State of the Nation address? There was a whole page about how these tax waivers are destroying our economy, denying us of revenue needed for national development. And he said he was going to really confront tax waivers head on. What changed? Why the U-turn? I'm not a fan of, impoverishing the masses, going after them with, these excruciating taxes, and then you select a few companies that they shouldn't pay their fair share. When even the criteria for selection, we have been asking, how were these companies selected? How were these companies selected? Then they claim, we want to support industrialization, 1D, 1F. What is the track record? What is the track record of 1D, 1F? We've been doing 1D, 1F for 8 years. And yet, the statistical service tells us that unemployment has worsened. You came to power with unemployment at 8%. It's now 14.7%, according to the Ghana Statistical Service.
How has it impacted import substitution?
So how has this 1D, 1F, your industrialization policies, how has it reduced unemployment? We rather see unemployment getting worse. If you read the latest Afrobarometer, 41% of Ghanaians say their headache is unemployment. 41%. Import substitution has not been addressed. We don't have any competitive advantage. we are still importing virtually everything. Factories have collapsed under a 1D1F era where tax waivers are being shared like confetti. In my own constituency, I feel so embarrassed that they celebrated factories that made my constituency so famous have all collapsed. Doc, are you aware Japan Textiles has collapsed?
Well,
Japan Textiles.
I knew it was collapsing, but I didn't
Yeah,
know
it's
that.
totally collapsed over the last few months. Workers are at home. They've shut down the place. We have to even try and mobilize the youth to go and be helping to protect, properties there. Because it's at the mercy of the vagaries of the weather and thieves and all of that. Who will have thought Japan Textiles? I mean, a country that has so many uniformed institutions. We can't give school uniform contracts to Japan Textiles, Akufo-Addo Textiles. The textile industry used to be one of the major employers in the 70s, 80s, 90s. It's all collapsed. We're importing everything from China. Yet we say we are doing 1D1F. Hundreds of millions of dollars in tax waivers. So where are those monies going to? Police, fire service, immigration, the military. We can't give their uniform contracts to a company like Japan Textiles, Akufo-Addo Textiles. I mean, it's mind-boggling.